Hey guys, it's Mark from Migraine Professional, and in this video, we're going to be talking about the hidden sources of migraine stress. Now, before we get started, we want to define stress. Stress isn't just that mental or emotional inner turmoil that we experience. Stress comes from any stimulus and its effect on our body. So stress can also be positive. It can be a hormetic stress or eustress, which is a stress that pushes our body and makes it a little bit better. So if we go and we exercise and our body is properly prepared to recover from that exercise, we're not over exercising, then that stress will be positive. That's a eustress. That's a hormetic stress, just like doing something like a cold shower. That's a hormetic stress. But if these stresses are chronic, if these stresses have no beneficial rebound effect, then these are negative. These are not helping our body. These are adding strain to our body's systems, whether that be our nervous system or our endocrine system, our hormonal system, our gastrointestinal system, whatever it may be. So we always want to make sure we kind of balance it out. We want a little bit of stress. We want a little bit of those stresses that get us uncomfortable and help our body sort of sustain itself and optimize itself and keep itself functioning well. But then we want to remove those stresses that do not give us a beneficial rebound effect, that do not help our body grow and repair and become stronger in the long run. Now, once we've reached the point of severe migraines or chronic migraines, our body's resources have been reduced so low that many stresses are negative stresses. Our body cannot properly rebound from them. It does not have the resources to repair. So then it just breaks down. It just pushes it farther and farther into burnout, farther and farther into pain, farther and farther into central sensitization. So in this video, we're going to be talking about hidden sources of migraine stress, not the regular ones like maybe for some people chocolate, or for some people weather changes, barometric pressure changes, but just hidden stressors that aren't generally talked about. So the first one that I wanted to kind of get started with, of course, is electromagnetic fields, electromagnetic fog, electromagnetic frequencies. These are given off by your different electronic devices, and these you do not really, unless you're a super sensitive person, you don't notice the effect of them on you. But the problem is that the studies really haven't been done on electromagnetic fields, sort of detrimental effect on the human body. There have been some, and they've really been shown that we need less exposure to these electromagnetic fields, especially if we have pathogens, dysbiosis, if we have viral infections. It kind of improves the virality of these pathogens. So we want to try and steer clear of electromagnetic fields. We want to dive in and see what electromagnetic fields are we living inside of, and how can we kind of get out of those. See our video on electromagnetic fields. Next one is mental and emotional. So this is the standard type of stress. So your mental stresses, whether that be you're just constantly wound up, you're worried about financial stress, or you're worried about your job, or more emotional things, worried about your relationships, you feel like you're living an unfulfilling life, you feel like you don't have a path, you don't have a North Star to follow and give you direction in your life. Those all create mental and emotional turmoil, and those are often some of the biggest stressors and the stressors that we need to deal with the most immediately, because they trickle down to everything else. Our mental and emotional, the way we feel and the way we think, affect every single cell in our body and how our cells function. If we think of our cells as part of our community, our mind is telling ourselves how to behave, how to act. So we can either be telling ourselves that we have a path, we have a purpose, we have something we want to achieve, or that we don't know what we're doing, we are lost, we are just open to whatever happens, and then that kind of leaves us open to many of the problems that life can present us with to help us grow. The next one, trauma is really, really big, and the incidence of adverse childhood effects is huge, and it sets the basis of our nervous system for our entire life. see our video on trauma. That's a really big area. You want to make sure that you're addressing your trauma and you're bringing down the upregulation of your nervous system, because when you get traumatized, your body will feel like you're not safe. And so it will increase the level of its nervous system's stimulation capabilities. And then this will lead to deleterious effects later on, 10, 20, 30 years down the line, where you're constantly wound up, you're constantly in survival mode, and this doesn't help you repair, it doesn't help your brain at all. Then environmental. So this is things like toiletries and makeup. These are not screened for chemicals that may have negative effects on our bodies, for heavy metals that may be absorbing into our bodies, for different endocrine disruptors that are changing the way our body functions, changing the way our glandular system functions. And we have scents. Any of the artificial scents are often filled with endocrine disruptors, and they fall into a class called obesogens. So obesogens are chemicals that promote obesity because they're changing how our glandular system functions. And so this is having a massive sweeping effect on our body, and it's one of them is creating obesity, creating weight gain. So we really want to be careful, especially like menstrual migraines. You don't want to be taking things in that are disrupting your hormonal system, your endocrine system, and that are, let's say, maybe putting more estrogens into your body than your body can handle. And then dysbiosis. So dysbiosis and a dysbiotic gut environment is one where you have more of the non-beneficial gut microbes than the beneficial ones. So this often happens either because you have a parasitic or pathogenic infection, which we'll cover in a second, or because you are just not eating foods that sustain your microbiome. So we always want to have a very varied diet. We don't necessarily have to have one certain diet. We don't have to be vegan to be healthy at all. Many people are not healthy vegan. But you want to have a very varied diet, because this variety, each different food and the nutrients in the different foods and the variation of foods feeds certain types of bacteria in our body. And then we also want to have time away from food. So we don't want to just constantly be feeding 24/7, 365. We also want to have times of fasting. Generally, that was it was usually times of transition in the seasons that would help our body kind of detoxify and cleanse itself, or there's times of famine, or it would just be throughout the night. Just fasting throughout the night, like intermittent fasting, is a great way to kind of help your body optimize its gut microbiome, help microbial species like Akkermansia grow and proliferate and help maintain our gut microbiome. Our dysbiotic environment is really crucial to overall health, and we have to understand that many of the nutrients we eat, our body doesn't actually absorb, but our microbes use, and then they produce nutrients and feed us nutrients. Just like a tree needs the nutrient, the microbes in its root system to protect it from pathogens, to feed it nutrients, and it's a symbiotic relationship. So you want to feed that symbiotic relationship. And then parasites and pathogens. These are big, and these will prevent you kind of repairing your gut health. You always want to make sure you get these addressed. We do this at Migraine Professional. We test you, we don't guess, for parasites and funguses and bacteria and protozoa and these different pathogens that can live inside of the gut. Absolutely destroy your gut, destroy your ability to take in nutrients, and then lead to the breakdown of your brain and lead to the breakdown of your body's ability to deal with stresses. And then it increases your immune system's response, because your immune system is constantly battling this. As we know, the majority of our brain cells are immune type cells. And then mold. Mold is huge. See our video on sick building syndrome, because mold is apparent in many of the older homes. Any place where you have moisture or sitting water, you really want to be careful for mold. Mold will stick around in the environment. It will get stuck to furniture and clothes, and so if you are constantly exposed to mold and your immune system gets compromised, it can develop a chronic infection sort of a chronic immune stimulation to that mold, and this can then again raise the levels of inflammation in your body, push you over your threshold, and trigger you. And then plastics, like we talked about in the environmental part, plastics are often full of endocrine disruptors, of many chemicals that are not beneficial to our body. So we always want to screen our environment, we want to screen our food, we want to screen what we're sort of putting the things we ingest into, because often plastic containers, especially, like, the worst thing you can do is take a Tupperware, BPA Tupperware, put some food in it, and then put that in the microwave and nuke it. You shouldn't be using a microwave anyway, especially if you have immune issues. But when you're doing this, then you're putting heat into the plastic with the food, and then this allows for much faster leaching of the toxins and the chemicals inside of the plastics into the foods. If you want to steer clear of plastics as much as you can, use things like ceramics and glass and sometimes metal, as long as they're not cheap metals. And then, of course, H2O. So tap water and bottled water is often not a good source of water. So just like the crisis in Michigan, in Flint, Michigan, where the tap water is actually been found to, after half a century, the tap water has been found to actually be toxic and poisonous. This is actually very, very common throughout the world. So you want to be careful. You want to remove, bottled water, just like we talked about in the plastic session. Bottled water is not a good idea. It's often been sitting in those bottles for a very long time, allowing the plastic to leach into the water. But then it's also that many tap water supplies are contaminated. They might not have bacterial or pathogenic things inside of it that will cause a problem, because we have sanitization systems for the water. But so it very commonly has hormones from birth control, heavy metals. It can have toxic runoff waste from farms. All of these tiny little chemicals are often not taken out of the water. Big things are. It's not dirty usually, they're often sanitized, so there isn't any bacteria or pathogens inside of it usually. But there are many chemicals and toxins, so you want to make sure you switch to a better quality water. You spring water, find a spring near you, or use bottles that are glass or ceramic that won't leach into the water. So really, I didn't touch on nutritional and dietary stressors and hidden ones, because it's such a broad category. It's so big. I've talked about it in many other videos, and I wanted to kind of cover some of the other areas. And so really, at Migraine Professional, that's what we do. We kind of test you, and then we teach you how to go about addressing your nutritional and dietary and environmental and physical and mental and emotional stressors to help your body repair, fix whatever the linchpin is that's kind of bringing your health down and breaking your brain, and then how to go about healing your brain. So for some people, it might just be a brain issue. For some people, it might be a hormonal issue. Hormonal issues are really easy to fix, and that's what we do in Migraine Professional. So let me know in the comments below. Have you found any hidden stressors that maybe I haven't talked about here? Something that was really kind of pulling from your body and taking its ability to repair and breaking it down and putting you into a pain state, pain flare. Let me know in the comments below. Thanks. Hey, it's Mark from migraineprofessional.com. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe in the bottom left corner, and if you want to learn more about migraines and headaches than you've ever known before, and understand what causes them, what creates them, and what you can do about them, make sure to go to migraineprofessional.com. Thanks.